Tasks to do. Plan the design of an experiment using the competitive reaction time paradigm to study the effect of frustration on aggression. So how it usually works is when one person reacts faster than another co-participant who's really confederate, they choose like how much air to blow on their neck or how loud a noise to blow at them, sort of aggression they enact toward the other participant. So if I wanted to do a variation of this, I would be interested in studying not only the behavioral reaction, but also the bodily arousal. So I would want to hook the participant up to like an EEG or probably a functional MRI would be the best, and like see where in the brain the aggression is taking place and what is lighting up. Find out how you score on the aggression questionnaire presented in box 1.1 and compare your score with the Buss and Perry sample at the bottom of the box. Okay, so my physical aggression score was 1.4. Women's score is usually 1.98 and men's score is usually 2.7, so mine is pretty low for physical aggression. But for verbal aggression, my score is 4.2. The men's score is usually 3.04 and the women's score is usually 2.70. So I'm about a quarter more aggressive than the average man when it comes to verbal aggression. When it comes to anger, my score was 2.7, which is slightly higher than both the men's and the women's, which is around 2.4. For hostility, my score was 2.3, which is slightly lower than both men's and women's, which is about 2.6. So I'm less physically aggressive than the average person, much more verbally aggressive than the average person, and pretty normal in terms of anger and hostility. Visit the official crime statistics database in your country, find out the most recent annual figure for homicide rates, and compare this rate with the figures recorded 10 and 20 years earlier. Okay, so looking at www.150.statcan.gc.ca, we can see that in 2022, there were 874 homicide victims in Canada, and the homicide rate per 100,000 population in 2002 was 2.25, which apparently is up by 8.2%. They list the annual change. It looks like that probably is the case because the crime severity index was also up by 4.3% in the last year, and police reported crime rate per 100,000 population was also up 5% in the last year. No, this was also during COVID, so this was 2022. I wonder how it's different now. Okay, so when you compare this to 2012, there were only 548 homicide victims, and the homicide rate per 100,000 population was 1.58. So a difference of 800-something murder victims to 500 murder victims over a period of the last 10 years in Canada. Interesting. So in 2002, the number of homicide victims was 582, so about the same as in 2012, and the homicide rates per 100,000 population was 1.86. So it held pretty steady, it looks like, from between 2002 to 2012, and then it went up a lot this past decade. There's been like COVID and a lot of issues, so that makes sense. That's wild. But up from like 500 to 872, that's pretty bad, dude.